Hello, God bless from Up Ministries. It's me, Dick Jr. I'm coming to you today to read you Amos chapter 1. We're going to start the book of Amos today. It's not a very long read, two and a half columns. I did take a reference out of this, which I don't usually do. The reference is to Joel chapter 3, verse 16. That's chapter 3, verse 16 of Joel. I only took that because I wrote it in my own hand. So, I prayed, though, and asked God to help me to speak with you before I started this video. We'll go to this stuff. And I suggest that you pray and you ask God for knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, specifically when you put yourself in His Word. And He's going to give them to you. Why? Because He doesn't want us to be in the dark about who He is, what He's done, what He's going to do. He wants us to know Him. So He's not going to keep you in the dark about Himself. But also, there's a prayer in Ephesians chapter 1, verses 16 and 17 by Paul for the church at Ephesia at the time. Very similar to that. But I also suggest you take other things to God in prayer. Anything, and I'll say it again, wants, needs, fears, or whatever. But not just the bad things. Take the good things to Him too. Thank Him for your food. Start there. Thank Him for your paycheck. Thanks for the breath in your lungs. Thanks for grandchildren. They're a blessing. I can't tell you how these prayers are going to come out. Okay, but I can make this promise. God's prayer answering God. How can I make that promise? Because I've seen God answer prayers with my very own eyes. My prayers, other people's prayers. What kind of prayers? Well, let's just say that in 2018, I was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer, and I'm still here. Okay. This book also is full of prayers that have been answered. Okay. So that's how I know. Do I know which ones He's going to answer? No, because I've seen many people that I love pass on regardless of the prayers, for healing. And I've seen this, and, I don't know whose prayers are going to be answered. That's the point of it. But here's the thing, and this is scriptural. If you don't ask, you can't receive. You won't receive. So you got to ask Him. So try it out and see how it works. I mean, the worst thing that can happen is you find some of your prayers get answered, okay? And if not, you're trying, okay? But I believe that God will touch you somehow. Anyway, that's just me. So let's just go ahead, excuse me, and get on here with the book of Amos, chapter 1. So, the words of Amos, who was among the sheep herders. I'm going to pause right there, okay? Amos was a great prophet. Amos was a sheep herder, which means God qualifies the called. He called him from sheep herding. A simple, you see what I mean? He didn't call him from being a king or a prince or the greatest warrior ever. You see what I mean? He called a sheep herder. Take note. Among the sheep herders from Tekoa, which he envisioned in visions concerning Israel in the days of Uzziah, king of Judah, and in the days of Jeroboam, son of Joash, king of Israel, 2 years before the earthquake. That's a very specific time. 2 years before the earthquake. And you can follow this time. Okay? He said, the Lord roars from Zion, and from Jerusalem He utters His voice. And the shepherd's pasture grounds mourn, and the summit of Carmel dries up. And this is where we're going to go to Joel chapter 3, verse 16. And it's in reference to, it says, the Lord roars from Zion, and from Jerusalem He utters His voice, in verse 2. So verse 16, chapter 3 of Joel says, the Lord roars from Zion and utters His voice from Jerusalem. Sounds exactly the same. That's why I noted it. Okay. So we'll just go ahead and go on. I like to think that there's probably things in Amos now that would go along with things in Joel, and things in Joel that, you see what I mean, and other prophets as well. But let's go ahead and get back to what we were doing. Thus says the Lord, for 3 transgressions of Damascus, and for 4, I will not revoke its punishment, because they threshed Gilead with implements of sharp iron. So I will send fire upon the house of Ahaziel, and it will consume the citadels of Ben-Hadad. I will also break the gate bar of Damascus and cut off the inhabitants from the valley of Aven, and him who holds the scepter from Beth Eden. So the people of Aram will go exiled to Kir, says the Lord. Thus says the Lord, for 3 transgressions of Gaza and for 4, I will not revoke its punishment, because they deported an entire population to deliver it up to Edom. So I will send fire upon the wall of Gaza, and it will consume her citadels. I will also cut off the inhabitant from Ashdod, and him who holds the scepter from Ashkelon. And I will even unleash my power upon Ekron, and the remnant of the Philistines will perish, says the Lord God. Thus says the Lord, for 3 transgressions of Tyre, and for 4, I will not revoke its punishment, because they delivered up an entire population to Edom and did not remember the covenant of brotherhood. So I will send fire upon the wall of Tyre, and it will consume her citadels. Thus says the Lord, for 3 transgressions of Edom and for 4, I will not revoke its punishment, because he pursued his brother with the sword, while he stifled his compassion. His anger also tore continually, and he maintained his fury forever. So I will send fire upon Teman, and it will consume the citadels of Basra. Thus says the Lord, for 3 transgressions of the sons of Ammon, and for 4, I will not revoke its punishment, because they ripped open the pregnant women of Gilead in order to enlarge their borders. So I will kindle a fire on the wall of Rabbah, and it will consume her citadels, amid war cries on the day of battle, and a storm on the day of tempest. The king will go into exile, he and his princes together, says the Lord. And that is all I have for Amos chapter 1. So thanks for listening. God bless.